It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. He is Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley. Gary, after yesterday afternoon, I feel 0.5% better.
Well, we'll get to the specifics of that. I just love the Wall Street Journal. Well, Powell's saying everything is okay, and then he cuts the rate by 0.5%. Should we pay attention to what he says or what he's doing?
Well, the market paid attention to what he's doing because there was a 475-point swing after the announcement of the drop.
Down, right?
Yeah, because it was up 375, and then after the announcement, it went down more than 100 points.
Yeah, I saw futures are up quite a bit for tomorrow, but that was fascinating because when I saw it, I went, 0.5%. Okay, got to make sure that I check out when I get to work, right at midnight, I want to check out my 401k because it may be at the highest ever. That was my first thought. And then I look at it, it's like, it just dropped 300, 400 points from where it was.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So apparently they're not buying into it. So we'll get to that coming up. But an exciting day yesterday. You had both candidates out. Trump in New York. Here we go.
All right.
The people of our country and law enforcement does in this country is incredible. Tonight, let me also deliver a message straight to Kamala Harris. Have you heard of her? Who, by the way, was just rated by far the most liberal senator in the U.S. Senate, more so even further left than Bernie Sanders and Pocahontas. Pocahontas. She's more so. Elizabeth Warren, she's more left than Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren. Let me also deliver a message straight to Kamala Harris, the radical left Democrat politicians, and the fake news media. Look how many are there. We've got to get our media back in this country. We've got to get them back. But the message is it's time to stop the lies, stop the hoaxes, stop the smears, stop the lawfare and the fake lawsuits against me, and stop claiming your opponents will turn America into a dictatorship. Give me a break.
There you go. That's Trump on Long Island yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
I will tell you this: I saw just a couple of the videos on Gutfeld. He looks really good.
Yeah.
I mean, physically he looks good.
Yeah.
You notice that the Democrats have stopped trying to throw out there that his cognitive abilities have gone down. That stopped about 10 days ago.
Yeah.
You notice that?
It did, and the reason likely is that it was coming back and their internals showing, that's not working. That's not working. You can't make that case for Donald Trump through everything that's been thrown at him, including 2 assassination attempts. He hasn't flinched.
And then there's did you see the new Trump ad? Ready for the new Trump ad? Here's the new Trump ad.
Yeah.
Now they have pledged to carry out the largest deportation, a mass deportation in American history. Imagine what that would look like and what that would be.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message.
That's exactly the first when I heard it. When I heard her say that, I was like, "Oh, hold on a second. Let me imagine. Can I dream for just a second?"
When you look at it, I mean, one thing that we had told the Trump campaign and Republicans in general, but really the Trump campaign a year ago, We just said, we had said it about Biden. And then as soon as she got in, we said, just use them in their own words.
Yeah.
Use them in their own words.
Yeah.
You don't really have to you don't have to have, hi, honey, how are you? Let's have a cup of coffee and talk coffee table issues.
Yeah.
I don't like Kamala Harris because you don't need to do that.
Yeah.
Just
right.
play it. Everything.
Any ads of her, two guys talking, saying she's not one of those crazy Democrats? They couldn't pull that off, could they?
No. No, they could. And then her quote of the day yesterday in her speech. Here we go.
All right.
I grew up understanding the children of the community are the children of the community.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message, man. I mean, that's all you got. That's all you need. It's seriously easier than ever. When we first said it years ago, just play them in their own words, and boom, do the tag and get out. I didn't know it was just going to keep getting easier. And this is the easiest it's ever been on the whole deportation thing. That was just beautiful. Imagine what it would be like. Everybody's going, yeah. And we're trying to imagine what it would be like. We're dreaming of what it would be like to get our border secured. Yeah, we'd like to imagine that. Thanks to you, right now, we can't even imagine that. That seems like a fantasy, like a delusional thought.
I've never seen it to this extent. I've never seen a campaign use the words of the candidate in so many political ads ever. Now, again, we had told the campaign a year ago with Biden to do it.
Mm-hmm. We told Republicans years ago to, use Democrats in their own words.
Right. And so when she took over, we said, my God, the opportunity is even better. You need to every single ad needs to be her in her own words because you can't dispute that.
Yeah.
You can't dispute. There is no argument that you can, if you're somebody who's listening and you hear her.
Yeah.
And this is the thing. The part about the ad is when you hear it to begin with, you don't know. If you're an independent, probably a lot of independents don't know when they hear it whose ad it is.
Right. Yeah.
When they hear it the first, and that's what you go, independents hear, and they go, oh, okay, here's Kamala Harris. What does she have to say? You don't know it's a political ad until Trump comes on at the end.
Right.
And so the message is given to you in the opposition's own words, which is why I believe it's the most effective type of political ad that you can use. And apparently the Trump campaign finally listening to us after all these years.
Right.
Well, let's put it, I don't want to just put it on Trump. Finally, a Republican listening to us.
Yeah, right. Yeah, there you go. Well, it's and it has been just very consistent in that regard. The campaign has been. The other day, I went to their X page, the Trump War Room X page, and I looked, and scrolling down, you didn't have to scroll down far. At least half of the posts on there was the opposition, with videos of the opposition. Yeah. Tim Walz and Kamala Harris. And that tells you everything right there.
Well, you go on social media, and all you see, and this is the other thing, too, it's not just from the Trump campaign, all the surrogates.
Yeah.
And it's not like, they are playing way more what the opposition has said and where they really stand on the issues than they ever play. We just play the audio cut from Trump, but they don't play most audio cuts from Trump. They may once in a while, but you see, it's 10-1. Her in her own words.
Right. Right.
Versus, here's what Trump said today or whatever.
Well, and on the big things with Trump, they have to do what? They have to lie by omission. Like the Charlottesville lie. If they want to quote him, they quote him by lying about what he said, which isn't quoting him. The full quote sets the record straight on that. So what does it tell you? I mean, the Philadelphia interview the other day, Trump War Room posted the whole thing online, said, here's our new ad.
Yeah.
The Kamala Harris Philadelphia interview with local media there in Philadelphia. And that tells you everything.
Well, then this one came out yesterday, and this one was all over the place. And this was Harris, where she really stands.
Right.
And this put into an ad. I don't know if this, again, we're not in the battleground states. So we don't see most of the ads.
Right.
And so it's tough for us to get a feel. You get a better feel when you're just going about your day if you're in a battleground state, how they're both positioning themselves. But we've seen enough ads and heard enough ads and searched for the ads out there, and it is really amazing that it might be 95% of the Trump ads are just the opposition, as Harris in her own words. Here's one that is, if it isn't an ad already, will become, because this was found yesterday. Well, I don't know if it was found yesterday, but it went viral on the internet. Here we go, and this is her talking about gun control.
Responsible behaviors among everybody in the community, and just because you legally possess a gun in the sanctity of your locked home doesn't mean that we're not going to walk into that home and check to see if you're being responsible and safe in the way you conduct your affairs.
Just because you legally possess a gun in the sanctity of your locked home does not mean we're not going to walk into that home and check to see if you're being responsible.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. No, this is exactly what those who are looking to protect the Second Amendment have been talking about for years. She's not the only one on the left who believes that. We have the right to come into your home. We'll check on you. Look, they're the mandatory buyback program. They want to take your guns. They want to ban guns. They've been very clear about it, except when they're on a debate stage. They lie about it.
Here's a panel discussion show on CNN yesterday, wondering where, it's all, because it always eventually gets to the issues. Here's Dana Bash and company.
When you listen to Kamala Harris and what she will do, you can almost start a drinking game every time she says small businesses. Let me give you an example.
Part of my plan under my economic opportunity plan going forward is that right now, startup entrepreneurs, small businesses only get a tax deduction of $5,000. Nobody can start a small business with $5,000. So I'm expanding that to $50,000. Understanding, again, that when people have the opportunity to have the resources to get started, they're going to put the good ideas, they're going to put the hard work into it.
Describe the politics of that.
She says that. She also talks about being a middle-class kid. That's also at the front of her answers. If you look at the interviews they've been doing with local media, and they've opened up a bit more since the debate, the first question is often, what are you going to do to lower prices? Which is a very hard question for an incumbent party to answer. And it has implications that are very Trumpian. It is, Trump says he's going to do mass deportation. That'll decrease demand. Trump says he'll explore more energy. That'll decrease energy costs. Democrats can point to the fact that inflation is actually, it was bad 2 years ago. It's not now. What people want to hear is, how do you make the prices go down? So everything she says is something realistic that could survive a fact check that answers a very hard question. There is not a plan to say that we're going to lower the cost of your grocery bill to what it was in 2019. There was a pandemic. There was a money supply inflation. You can't hit the button that makes that go away. But Trump has an answer that gets him through these questions. And Harris, I think, with a different set of incentives and a different relationship to something she can back up in a policy paper, she doesn't have an answer. So she goes.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's on CNN.
Yeah. I mean,
and that's their political reporter. It's, what's it, David Weigel? Weigel, whatever.
But they know how bad it is. They understand. This has been a fumble from the beginning. Having her as the nominee, the buyer's remorse, that doesn't even start to cover it. They really wish that they had another choice. But they didn't really have one, because you can't leapfrog over Kamala Harris.
Nancy said it was an open primary. Did you see that
yeah,
yesterday?
Yeah.
That audio cut. Where she said, no, we had an open primary. It's like,
right.
What the hell are you talking about?
Right.
No open...
How many people voted for Kamala Harris,
right.
Nancy?
Exactly. I mean, it's just Well, they're doing what we told them to do.
Lie big.
The only fact is they're doing it way too late.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, way too late over the years.
Yeah, and
not just for this campaign.
And on things that are too obvious. You know, they're
Yeah.
lying about things that are too obvious that everybody knows are false.
866-90 Red Eye.
This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance. Did you know that up to half of all major engine failures are due to poor cooling system maintenance? That's a lot of downtime and can cost drivers big. You expect a lot from your engine, which is why the cooling system must be a part of your maintenance routine. Here's a tip to keep your cooling system in shape and your engine running smooth. Make sure the system is properly filled with coolant at every PM interval and during pre- and post-trip inspections. Underfilling the cooling system can cause corrosion and your engine to overheat. Coolant is also used to keep DEF tanks thawed in the winter. If you notice unusually low coolant levels, be sure to have your cooling system inspected by a professional technician.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Well, it seems like the majority of the Teamsters are for Trump.
All right. Sean O'Brien said, where was that? Was that on Fox News? Where he said the majority, he said a great number. I think that was the direct quote or the words he used. A great number of our members will be voting for the other guy, talking about Trump. This is quite some time ago, earlier this year, or was it last year? I think it was earlier this year. And then the Teamsters come out officially yesterday and say, we're not going to endorse either candidate, blah, 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 big business, blah, blah, blah. But it shows that 60% of our members are going to be voting for Trump. Our internals show 60% of the Teamster members are going to be voting for Trump. Well, that sounds like an endorsement to me. I mean, it's not officially union leadership endorsement, but those are landslide numbers. And so I think, 34% were going to vote for Kamala Harris.
32, something like that.
Yeah, and then 6% were saying another candidate. But 60% is landslide numbers, and that's a big deal. And I just wonder at what point the executive board is making that decision, union leadership is making that decision, and they come to the conclusion, we can't endorse her. Because this is a pretty big deal.
You know, the interesting thing is, too, Trump has stuck his ground on, right to work laws in states, which unions, the union leadership has been against. Latest poll that was done on this, right to work laws, voters overwhelmingly support them, even union members, according to the latest poll. 89% of all voters and 79% of union members agree with the statement, workers should never be forced to join a union or pay dues to a union as a condition of employment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the whole point is, I think union members even understand, no, unions should be able to explain the benefit, and then you voluntarily, join it.
Right.
Because they need to offer something.
Right, exactly. There should be an incentive.
Right, if a union exists, they have to tell you, well, we exist to provide something better.
Mm-hmm.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. There's so much going on. I'm over here playing all these audio cuts. It's like I don't even know where to go. There's so much happened yesterday.
Yeah, I was looking at more of the stuff from former President Trump on Long Island. You and I talking about, all right, what's the game there? It's really about the down ballot. New York's not going to go red, but if you're helping out the congressional seats, in those districts where you're going to need as many House seats as you can get. This is what I wonder about the left, though, as I was going through that, and you and I kind of had a short conversation about that during the break. And I'm wondering about the Democrats. And I've been wondering about this. I knew that while Biden was still in, I was confident, and I'm still confident that they were seeing that. In fact, I think we played some of the Democrats saying, yeah, there's a lot of concern about the down ballot effect with Biden now. And
with Harris.
No, back then.
Okay.
And now with Harris, I think they tried to put up this facade, and I think their internals came back, and you can tell what's going on. I've been calling it buyer's remorse with Harris, but I think they're seeing internals that show the thing on the down ballot hasn't changed. She isn't energizing anyone, and voter apathy could be very real and a real problem for the Democratic Party. And meanwhile, you have President Trump out there campaigning in blue states, but in districts where they're hoping for red seats. And he knows, and the party knows, you're going to need everything you can get on Capitol Hill in order for Trump to be able to build his legacy in his what would be his final 4 years as president if he won.
Yeah, I mean, that was you could see it on social media. All the surrogates around there saying, "See, Trump's going to flip New York. He's going to flip. This is over. It's over." It's like, well, I would. That would be great if he could flip New York.
If he does it, we will have it will be one of those shows.
But that's not why he was there.
No, and
he was there because they're trying to do whatever they can to win those New York vulnerable congressional districts where they believe they have a shot.
The Teamsters thing has to worry the Democrats. The working class thing has to worry the Democrats right now. So when you think about Long Island, when you think about New York, when you think about the working class, when you think about the Rust Belt, do they even call it the Rust Belt anymore? When you think about manufacturing, who's been talking about it? Who's been talking about Trump just the other day? We'll make it better than it was 50 years ago on auto manufacturing. All of these things where the focus is, again, whether they can get it done or not, that's what they want to get done. The liberal left wants to shut down manufacturing, starting with shutting down energy, which we've always said, because it's true, that when you have cheap energy as a nation, then you're going to attract all of these manufacturers from around the world, because then they want to be here. Look, we are the marketplace. We are the American consumer is the marketplace. And you want access to the American consumer any way you can get it. And if you can set up manufacturing in the United States long term, the only question mark there is labor, having enough labor to get it done. But in terms of the attitude, in terms of the approach on policy, it is clear now the Republican Party is the working class party politically, and the Democrats are anything but, and they used to be.
Well, but that's one of the reasons why when you talk about, and we had played the audio cut yesterday of Trump saying a few years back when he was going at it with Jim Acosta that he is for legal immigration because we're going to need the workers. And what I find interesting is the fact that keenly Trump understands the fact that if we can flood this country with oil and natural gas, if we can have massively cheap electricity, which is very easy to have. That is what can pull manufacturing in, especially since so much of manufacturing is going to have, because it's going to be run by AI.
Mm-hmm.
And you have the best tech in the United States, and you have the ability, you're always going to have, I guess, more blue-collar jobs, but not as many. The jobs that are going to be created are more highly educated jobs, which, again, when it comes to immigration for people to come to the United States to do that, is something that Trump was going back and forth on, remember, in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
Remember when it came to the visas, he flipped, like in 48 hours.
Well, on stage during that debate, remember, and I think it was Megyn Kelly was one of the moderators, and he was saying, no, I've changed. And that was during that, it was only a 2 or 3 day period where it went back and forth on his position on that.
And that's because when you look at economics, we don't have a birth rate.
Mm-hmm.
The birth rate isn't there.
Yeah,
it's not going to be there. You don't have a baby boom.
Yeah.
That baby boom from post World War II was gone, and the huge influx of the 50 years post World War II, where women came into the workforce in massive numbers, to now where you have more women working than men.
Yeah.
In the United States, that's gone. That's all been tapped out.
Right.
And Trump understood that if you have the 2.5% to 3% growth rate that he was looking at 4% or 5%,
mm-hmm.
which probably is never going to happen. It all depends if they decide to revise how they do the GDP again. Well, let's not talk about actually production of goods and services. Let's talk about the movement of money,
right? Yeah.
Which we disagreed with when they decided to do that. Which
right.
is why, government spending is such a huge part of the GDP. Well, government spending is not the same thing as the private sector making a legit product and selling it, for a profit.
Yeah, the government cannot expand wealth.
But as you were saying, you can bring companies in here if you have, because you're going to, wherever you are, those high-tech jobs may exist or they don't exist,
mm-hmm.
but you're going to have to pay for them no matter where you are in the world.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm talking about the high-tech engineering jobs,
mm-hmm.
For manufacturing and other things. So yeah, you can do it.
And you touched on something yesterday, by the way.
I just want to finish this point though, because it's the point we brought up. But if Trump throws on huge tariffs, that takes away the incentive for companies, because from out of the, I'm not talking about American companies, from other countries from coming in here, wanting, to produce here and then export, because if it's exported from the United States, a retaliation from the tariffs will hit. So it's sort of counterproductive. And I don't know if he's thought that whole thing out. He's absolutely right on one end, but the other end is where you would have problems, because even he knows. Because if the point of tariffs is to have the United States produce only products for the United States citizens, that's not going to work.
Right. You pointed something out yesterday. You said something. You touched on it briefly on, and we talked about it before, how emerging nations, the cost of labor is going up. They're having to be more competitive. That's important, too. So when you talk about the value of moving your operations, moving manufacturing to the U.S., as the cost of global labor starts to increase, everybody talks about, the jobs and wages, hourly wages and everything in the U.S. Have gone down, and then they often compare, this state versus that state and everything else. In fact, often the unions will tell you, no, the right to work states have lower wages. And really what's hurt has been it's the global competition. We don't compete because of free trade. We don't compete just by state. You're competing with other nations when it comes to that cost of labor. But there are other factors. Cost of energy is everything. Also, cost of regulation. You can have cheap labor, but cost of regulation can and taxes can eat your lunch in other nations. And that's why we need a complete, or what they would call on Capitol Hill, comprehensive policy that is going to attract long-term policy on energy and on regulations that's going to attract business.
On energy regulation, excuse me, regulations and corporate taxes.
Yeah,
if you can have the lowest
the taxes,
yeah,
exactly.
if you can have which by the way is all part of regulation,
right?
I mean, everything. The only reason we don't have cheap electricity rates and we're not flooded with oil and natural gas in the United States, where you can actually export it. By the way, there was an article yesterday about the Democrats are even worried because of the LNG that they know would be hugely successful for the United States to export, and they go, Biden's against it. They're not. Even Democrats are like, this isn't a good thing, and they trying to find out where does Harris, where does she think on that? But if you can flood the United States market and still export at the same time, and you can have lower energy prices than any of the industrialized countries in the world, because everybody's doing the climate change crap, even India is.
Oh yeah.
And you can have the lowest, tax rate. That's what you want to do to keep U.S. companies here and even bring in international companies, because as we all know, companies are not restricted to one country.
Right.
Everything is multinational. If you make an automobile in the United States, or if you make an automobile in Mexico, or you make an automobile in Canada, you have probably 10,000 suppliers all over the world.
My Chevy Silverado was built in Canada. So, I mean, you look at, and
it was assembled in Canada.
Yeah, right.
Again, the building part of it is people think that, okay, if it's built in Mexico, that means, no, it's assembled in Mexico.
Yeah, built. Yeah, right.
Yeah, the products come from all over the place.
Well, I think they broke down the Corvette one time. A buddy of mine who's a car expert, he broke down the Corvette, and he talked about, or at least that year model of the Corvette, and he talked about the brake parts, the electronics, the chips. By the way, the chips, what we went through, the electronic chips, what we went through during COVID, while most of that was related to electronics. Of course, you've got an onboard computer in your car, and it was really about the rush on, or the run on, devices to set up home offices during COVID, but still that affected the auto industry. You are going to have a massive problem, too, if you don't have a consistent supply chain. Will we ever see a massive event like COVID? Likely no, but possibly. And if you have the attitude where, the likelihood is no, you have to, long-term, as a business, as an industry, you have to set up. This is why there was promise of, and I don't know how to what point it will actually get to, but you've got chip makers now in the U.S., which is huge. And Steve Jobs pleaded with Obama when Obama was president, and there was this big summit, this tech summit. Look, we'd like to repatriate our funds and be able to invest here. We want to build our phones here. We want to bring those jobs here. Those are the things that companies like Coca-Cola have talked about, and not being taxed for bringing your money back to the U.S., from the money you make abroad. Let them bring that money back to the U.S. That's exactly what we should be doing. And it is a massive flood of wealth where we are the king when it comes to energy and manufacturing. And we should have that policy long-term, ironclad, in place.
866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thanks so much for being here. We'll get to that actual poll. I'll get the actual numbers for the Teamsters poll. Polling out there. Also coming up, some of the economic promises on both sides. Most that we will never see.
Right. Yeah.
Very, very highly doubt you're going to see a 10%, even a temporary 10% cap on credit cards. Trump promoted that last night. It's like, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
It's not, I understand. I understand what he's doing. Look, in order to make sure I win, promise everything, and then when I get to be president, say Congress won't.
Right. Exactly.
Congress won't let me do that.
Exactly.
Top of the hour news is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the world, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And when we talk about some of the economic things being brought up by both campaigns, understand that to start off with the premise that if Trump gets in office, we're going to have disagreements with him.
Sure.
On some of the economic things that he's proposing that we view as liberal / populist, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But really doesn't matter this election. This election is, for me, about stopping the weaponization of government. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
We cannot continue on that path. That's like 100%. Everything else would be zero for me right now.
Well, it is the wall we have to get through.
Right.
It is the issue we have to resolve for anything and everything else to be fixed. Before we can get to that point, that has to be resolved.
Right.
Because it goes to the level of trust in government. Now, the lack of trust in government more and more. But beyond that, the lack of trust in the management, in the leadership at the top law enforcement agencies, which starts with the FBI. Restoring that trust, which I don't know if it would happen in my lifetime. I don't know what it will take, but the weaponization of government must be stopped.
On many of the economic things that both sides talk about, you have to deal with the limitations of where you can go with spending because of where we are right now with, $1 trillion now in just interest payments, probably be $1.2 trillion. Probably one of the reasons that the Fed wants to accelerate the interest rate coming down, but eventually it doesn't matter what the interest rate is. The debt gets so great, and the
principal amount grows and then
gets so great, and therefore you may not have as many investors. Well, then you need to start the Fed starting to print money again, as we know, to buy their own debt to bring down the interest rate. I mean, this is why you and I laughed when, remember, during 2012, the Chinese are manipulating their currency.
Mm-hmm.
What the hell you think we're doing? It's like, come on. And it was like, I remember when we said that, oh, okay, well, I didn't think about that. Well, yeah, by you're manipulating the dollar because you're manipulating the interest rate. And if you're manipulating the interest rate to attain a certain goal, that's manipulating the dollar.
Right, yeah.
But let's first start with Kamala, because this is from Kevin O'Leary yesterday, talking about everybody that he's talking with in her campaign is saying, well, she's not going to do any of this. This is just to hold her base. Here we go.
What I've been doing, and others in the investment community are doing the same thing, we're going directly to her advisors to try and glean some information about what's really going on here. I'm not going to disclose their names because I don't want to lose access to them, but I've been doing a lot of that in the last week. And so let me give you an example. In querying about this idea of taxing unrealized capital gains, which would basically destroy the economy and change the way every investor would invest and chase capital out of the country, I've been told, listen, don't worry about it. Just be happy. There's no way Congress would ever pass that. She has to keep saying that to keep her base happy, to bring people out to vote for her. But that's not going to happen. Don't worry about it. When I talk about some of these policies around student loans or controlling pricing at grocery on consumer goods, which has been tried in many countries, Venezuela, Cuba, the old Soviet Union, we know that doesn't work. Don't worry about it. Be happy. That'll never happen. It'll be blocked in Congress. So that's what her policy advisors are saying. And my question simply to them is, why can't she say that herself? Right. Why do I have to get it through you? And if it doesn't work out that way, don't I have a lot of risk, particularly around corporate tax rates? Yeah. Proposal at 28 would put us in the bottom quartile of competition globally in the G20. Don't worry about it. Be happy. Yeah. Well, I'm not happy. Right. And I think a lot of other people are not happy. We just need her to sit down and talk to the press, which she has to do because it would be unprecedented for this election cycle to end with her never talking to the press. No presidential candidate in modern times has ever done that.
And I'm talking about a press conference.
Yeah, right.
Not finding friendly people, but even with the liberal black journalists yesterday, I mean, they were basically, she was not answering our questions, especially on guns. They couldn't get an answer out of her on that. But getting back to the economics, I believe that if they could get the votes, they would do it. Now, you're not going to get the votes on unrealized capital gains. That's not going to happen. Right. Even Democrats won't vote for it. So I believe that. But again, I don't put anything. Maybe 20 years ago, I would say, well, that's never going to happen. I'm pretty sure it's not going to happen. But I can't say never anymore. Well, I just don't. Yeah. You have a Republican Party that is now mirroring what the Democrat Party probably was 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The Republicans and some of Trump's plan is the same thing, government manipulating the economy to get to a certain end.
And limiting.
The belief that Trump can regulate an economy better than Harris can regulate an economy. And since both are going to regulate an economy, it would be better for Trump to regulate the economy because he would do it less.
Well, this is the problem that I have with some of the language being used by the Republicans right now. A handful or too many Republicans, I'll say that. Josh Hawley, who is promoting this idea of also limiting interest rates and the government coming in and setting a cap on interest rates.
Well, that was of 17%. Trump set a temporary cap of 10% day one when he gets into office.
Exactly where I'm going with the more and more this, these big corporations. This was the tactic used by the left in getting us here. I years ago called it the conditioning of America. You repeat certain phrases over and over again. You use certain words in your demonization in promoting your agenda in order to condition people to, these corporations. Well, just look at the corporations. Well, most people can't name, too many people, we used to be able to say most people, too many people can't name the three branches of government. Let's get into talking about corporate law, tax law. Let's talk about how an economy runs and everything else. If you're just repeating talking points, especially talking points the Democrats have used before, then you've got my attention, and it tells me you're trying to build that consensus. And if you're trying to build that consensus on the right, then there's no way it won't actually be in play on the left. In fact, you're going to get cooperation on the left. I already know that, which means you could get a deal like that done. I don't think they're going to get it done right now. But you keep saying things like that, and more Republicans keep using those key phrases and demonizing the wealth expansion of America over and over again. Then, of course, we're going to eventually get to that if they convince enough people. And that's a problem.
Now, when it comes to, we'll first hit Kamala. It was a very interesting article in, I don't even know where, maybe it was National Review or Wall Street Journal. I read so many that talked about her wanting to have rent controls across the country.
Mm-hmm.
And the interesting thing about how this, the Supreme Court, waiting to hear issues like this, because rent control is price control.
Mm-hmm.
Price controls on food is price controls. You had one of the surrogates. I'll see if I can find that audio. I just thought about it now. That was on yesterday on one of the financial news channels. Couldn't define what the hell the policy would be for price controls on food. They have no idea what it would be. They have no idea how they would implement it at all. But it sounds, it sounds good. But the rent control, they were saying, the Supreme Court hears this, and they talked about, Justice Thomas saying, that the rent control laws, which is price fixing, not price fixing, price controls, that it is actually taking private property and putting it to a public good instead of a private property, that it becomes a public good at that particular moment. And I went, wow, the Supreme Court looking at, different price controls, and Trump talking about the fact that day one, he would implement a temporary 10% cap on credit card interest rates, whatever that means, temporary. Well, Congress has never regulated interest rates. States do that.
Mm-hmm.
States come up with it. And so when they did it with the, what was it? Was it Dodd-Frank, the credit card bill?
Mm-hmm.
Remember the credit card, Bill of Rights back in 2010, I believe that was? The Supreme Court has said fees are interest. So they have technically regulated interest for the first time with the fees that they did in that particular bill, but they've never actually looked at interest rates and done it. But the same thing applies. It was interesting on social media watching it saying, well, no, it's not price controls because it's talking about, usury, as we all know, and the fact of, well, it's in the Bible and everything else, and many religions banned it. Whatever religions did, fine, but it still is price controls. It's price controls on money. There's nothing immoral. There's nothing immoral about lending money and charging an interest rate. It's no different than anything else. You're selling renting capital to somebody else, and you can charge a price. You can charge a price for it. Now, the problem is, it looks like because of Dodd-Frank's past constitutional approval, that Congress probably could regulate interest rates, except for the fact that if you regulate interest rates, some of the thought, and Justice Thomas brought that up, is that you turn something from the private sector. It doesn't become private property anymore. It becomes a public good because the government is basically, controlling the means of production through controlling the capital that you can make on a private transaction between two different entities. And so the courts may be looking at it in a different way. But the fact is, there's no precedent where, unless you're talking about a national emergency, a war, where a president can implement a temporary or a permanent cap on credit card interest rates or price controls to begin with. You would need Congress to do that. That's not going to happen.
Remember, we got the calls on health care and the whole Obamacare discussion. No one should make a dime of profit on health care. Yeah. And we said, okay, let's break that down. Because Most of us don't require health care to the point of going to the doctor every day. We require food every day. Let's look at groceries. Let's look at food. If you apply that, then what is necessary to survive, then nobody should make a dime of profit off of food manufacturing. Well, what would that mean? Well, the food manufacturers, the companies, the retailers, they go out of business. Okay, well, then the government would have to do it. Oh, you mean the government controlling the means of production?
Yeah, I know.
It's not that far. It's not even, what is it, the 6 degrees of
separation
of Kevin Bacon thing on communism. It's not even 6. I think it's 3. But there's the equation, because that was the approach with healthcare, by the way. They have talked about it. They've talked about it with energy. Democrats have openly had the conversation about the government controlling these things. And these are huge chunks of the economy. When you talk about healthcare and energy, they're massive, massive chunks of the economy.
Well, it's amazing that you see how government runs the budget.
Yeah, right, exactly.
And then people say the private sector is the problem.
Yeah.
When the monopoly of government is a million times worse than whatever happens in the private sector.
Right.
But, yeah, so Trump, it'd be probably, if he could do it through an executive order. But how is that different than the things that Biden did?
Right.
And so there is no emergency. There is no national emergency. We're not at war.
Right.
These are private transactions between individuals. That's what capitalism is about. You have private transactions.
Mm-hmm.
And to say, Josh Hawley had the 17% we criticized. Now Trump bringing the 10% on. Now, again, we understand that part of the populist portion of the Republican Party, which means the part that's gone more left, especially on economic issues, understands that you can win by promising everything and then get in office and say, well, Congress won't do it.
Right.
Trump, for example, nobody talked about this one at all. No one has talked about this one at all. He completely reversed what was viewed as one of his greatest victories when he was in office last time. And that's he wants to, you're not going to eliminate, the SALT. He wants to reverse what they did on SALT.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right.
He wants the deductions to come back for SALT because he wants those blue states. So what is viewed as one of his biggest victories in taxes.
Right.
And look, he wants to now reverse, and nobody's talked about it. And it's just like, wow. And so you can promise all these things, but when you get in office, it's a totally different ballgame.
It is. Yep. And we said it, by the way, about Barack Obama promising the world in 2008. All right, for those who voted for him, he's going to do some things you don't like when he becomes president.
Yep. Now, I did like some of the ideas when you look at, because all these things, when we'll get into the constitutional issues on it, because it's really fascinating when you look at it and go, well, could you even do these things? 866-98 Red Eye.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
Most owner-operators leased to larger carriers are paid on a per-mile basis or a percentage of revenue per load. The per-mile basis is most prevalent among larger fleets, percentage at smaller. Pay per mile tends to dominate discussions about pay just because it's easier to measure, and pay per mile often is wrongly used as the deciding factor in leasing to a carrier. While pay per mile can be a vital factor, it's not a cure for every ill, nor does it mean a big settlement check is coming an owner-operator's way. Why? Because pay per mile always must be considered in balance with gross revenue as well as total costs. Gross revenue can include flat mileage pay that varies by length of haul, percentage revenue pay, and more. Most importantly, though, for every revenue dollar generated, only part of that dollar is profit. But for every extra dollar of cost saved, the entire dollar contributes to profit. Knowing and understanding your cost to operate is fundamental to understanding the true value of any pay package. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Overdrive's Partners in Business program. Go to overdriveonline.com to the Partners in Business section of the website for more details on this and many other topics. Brought to you by Shell Rotella, with advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90 Red Eye on Red Eye Radio.
It's Run Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Understand when we talk about the economic plans of both candidates that to us this election isn't about what they're promising to do economic-wise. It's about the weaponization of government. That's number one. There are other things that are important to me, but that's number one. That has to end because that is the weaponization of government is a threat to democracy. But some of these things that both candidates are promising. What does the Constitution say about it?
Right.
What would be some of the problems that they would face? We'll get to that coming up.
Have a line open. 1-866-90-RED-EYE. Red Eye Radio.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Here was former President Donald Trump last night.
And while working Americans catch up, we're going to put a temporary cap on credit card interest rates. We're going to cap it at around 10%. We can't let them make 25 and 30%.
So there was a promise made last night. Now, is that possible? Would the courts allow him through an executive order to do that? There'd probably be a lawsuit filed by banks immediately on that. And from looking at legal precedent, they wouldn't allow him to do it.
Right.
Congress, again, Congress under current precedent, probably Congress could do it. Probably. But as we said, the thought process from Justice Thomas on rent controls that I think he probably would view credit card rates as the same thing. Mm-hmm. A cap on rent is no different than a cap on the price of money or the cap on the price of food. And one of the things is where you talk about, again, private property. And as he has stated, that rent control, and if it ever comes, above the, to the Supreme Court, he'd probably be a no vote on rent control based on the fact that rent control is turning private property into a public good, as if there's a public good, to do that. Now, whether that would be the majority, I don't know. But right now, on executive order, don't believe that Trump could do that.
Right.
On rent control. Nationwide, that's never going to pass, and I don't know federally whether that would be allowed. I think the Supreme Court might overturn, if they ever got it, rent control in New York City.
Yeah, if it ever got to that level, it probably would. It could. It has the potential, a good potential, of setting a precedent that would undo it in New York City. Yeah.
On no tax on tips, as we said, the problem with that is. You would have to change tips as not income.
Right. Yeah.
Because right now, interest on your bank account is income. That's not viewed as capital gains, which could be taxed at a different amount. The income tax is what the government is allowed to tax, but the legal precedent on it is the reason that people can be charged different amounts is, in taxes. It's like, well, why do I have to pay more, in taxes if I make more of a percentage? Mm-hmm. Why is that? Mm-hmm. Because everybody at the same amount, whatever your, taxable income is, everybody has to be taxed the same amount at that point.
Right. And then you get into the question of, how you go to, if you go to a restaurant and you have a party of 10 and they have a automatic gratuity set at whatever. Well, then that's compelled by policy, the policy of the restaurant,
right?
And then, but it's not voluntary by the payer. So all of those things go into consideration as to how the person earns that income and how you classify that income. And it would just, I think it would fail a legal test.
So that would probably be the problem there. Social Security benefits, that'd be Congress could do that, no problem.
Yeah,
So
right,
no
right.
tax on Social Security benefits. I remember when that passed, and there was people were furious on that.
Well, yeah,
It was
and over the years, I will say, as I've grown wiser in my age, I am against taxing Social Security.
Well, since I'll be collecting maximum Social Security in a year and a week.
Wow.
And if I stay working or I don't stay working, I'm not going to get, I will get the break on Social Security income of 15%. Because you don't have to pay on 15% of it as the max. But if you make less money, when you're retired, you can pay a lot less in taxes on Social Security. Again, that could be viewed as not income they're viewing it as income, but a special kind of income because it's basically it's not income from a company. It's not private sector or government employee type of income.
Right, right.
And so, but if they wish to say no tax on Social Security, yeah, because that precedent already existed legally before 83 or 82. I forgot when the law passed. There was no tax on Social Security.
Right.
I know a lot of people listening right now going, "Are you kidding me? There wasn't."
Yeah,
no, there wasn't.
Right.
And so that you could do on what interests me is the no tax on overtime. Now. First off, that's one thing that you and I have always talked about, what's unfair. Because we talk about, well, what's fair? And I go, why should somebody who's working 80 hours a week pay any more in taxes than somebody who makes 40 hours a week? If you're talking about what's fair. Because if you're working 80 hours a week, odds are you're saving more money, which means you have less of an odds of being a burden on society. So why? Because of your choice to become more productive and more self-sufficient, would the government not only tax you more, but tax you a greater percentage of that income?
Right.
If you, pass the line.
Right.
Whatever the line is on that. What I wonder about that is, and I may not have fully thought this one out legally as to the possibilities that could happen, is that could the law be written that all we're setting a certain level here, and as long as I don't think they could do it because it's set on income.
Yeah.
I still haven't fully thought that one out legally because it is set at income, and income again. If you have what is it? What is it called?
Bracket.
But the bracket on net income, taxable income.
Right.
You're right. Taxable income, everybody's charged the exact same. If you make it doesn't matter whether you live in California, whether you live in Texas, whether you live in New York. If your taxable income is $60,000, everybody pays the same amount. Now that's after deductions and everything else that you get in there. And I've always wondered, I've got to look into that. What is the precedent that some people can have more deductions? Why isn't it on gross? Why is it on net? And you can give more people deductions for certain behavior. Because isn't that, in essence, really taxing differently if you make the same income?
I actually was considering that just the other day. And I don't know what level of challenges, if any, there have been on that.
But the no tax on overtime would also be a tough one under current law and based on the fact that is income. And it doesn't matter where you get your income from.
Right.
If you make a certain level, you get taxed at that amount. Now, could you not say no tax on overtime, but could you make it a deduction for hours worked over 40 hours is the thing that I was thinking would be the loophole there. It's a deduction for working over 40 hours a week. would that pass constitutional review on income? Because you don't say we're not taxing overtime. You legally phrase it that you get a deduction, a 100% deduction for any income you earn over 40 hours. I know.
Could be a workaround. Yeah, maybe.
And the thing is, there's probably 100 legal arguments for that and against that, and I haven't gone through it all yet because I've never dealt with that one on overtime.
Yeah.
It's never come up before until a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, I need to tape that one to the wall and look at it.
Yeah, no tax on overtime.
Yeah.
Now, what the thing that I would want on that, since when I worked as a machinist at times, I worked 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. I would like that to be retroactive to 1979.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and also we want to promote no taxes for any money earned between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m.
Yes, I think so. Why? Because we are the people that work this time that are keeping this. We are sacrificing more than others. Therefore, we need a 100% deduction on all of our income made between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. I don't look at this. I don't see any of our staff disagreeing with that at all.
No, they don't disagree. Now they're not listening to us right now, but no, they're not disagreeing.
And any of our listeners out there, that's a damn good idea, guys.
It is.
Now you're doing some good thinking.
And for our podcasters, good luck.
Those listening in the future, this is about us, not you.
Yeah, don't make it about you.
Remember, we sacrificed already. When the Republicans lowered taxes during the Trump administration, our taxes went up.
Yeah, we paid.
We paid more in taxes.
Still not doing it on a postcard either, Ted Cruz.
Well, it's a very large postcard.
Yeah, right.
And there's more than one.
Like one of those large checks they have at a presentation. It's one of those.
Very quickly, when we talk about, things like government efficiency, I talked about this yesterday. I think about around this time, I got my driver license.
Not drivers, but driver license.
My driver license in
Texas.
Texas. And I talked about the fact that, why people complain, about the immigration and illegal immigration and the immigration policy of not vetting. I said, my God, I got to get my license and, I got to get fingerprints. You know why they want fingerprints? I thought it was because of the high security, because it's an enhanced license, but I already had an enhanced license. No, I asked her. I said, why do I have to give you a thumbprint? She goes, for the coroner if you're in an accident. So they can identify you.
Assuming the accident doesn't involve both thumbs, I guess. Yeah.
Keep both thumbs on the wheel.
Yeah, right.
That's where they ended up.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean that makes sense though.
But I talked about the fact that I got to I'm bringing in my birth certificate, my water bill, my passport, my old license. I said, geez, I've been vetted my entire life, and it's like, we understand when people get angry when you have to do that, and boom, people can fly in unvetted from all over the country and stay here for a significant period of time,
right? Maybe
forever.
Yeah,
and never be vetted. But the process was absolutely fantastic. Best experience I've ever had at a DMV, so I got to credit the state of Texas. I walked in there, filled out the application. They called me. My appointment was for 11 o'clock. They called me at 3 after. By 16 after, I was walking out the door.
I will say the person I went a couple of months ago, and the person that I dealt with at the desk when I got up there, a little bit of an attitude. She said, "Sir, you don't have to turn your head and cough and quit asking."
Oh, man. I didn't need to know that.
Yeah.
Well,
I was prepared for it. It's a vetting process.
Well, if you're in Hezbollah, you don't have to deal with that.
Yeah, well, okay.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. I think the one thing interesting is that the United States government, whether it's the State Department, the White House, all said we had no idea that Israel was going to do what Israel did. We had no idea. And I think it was Scott Jennings who brought up, he goes, isn't that interesting? Israel and something like this, that normally they probably would communicate because they know that a United States administration would agree with them and keep it secret. They can't trust the United States.
Well, that's what's going on, something that we've talked about, especially since the botched exit of Afghanistan. But, of course, the position of this administration that has helped Iran finance Hezbollah through Iran, being able to sell oil on the global markets where Trump stopped them from doing that, then if you're part of leadership in Israel, you can't trust anything from the U.S. You're not going to look for their blessing on things, on everything. But also, again, the botched exit of Afghanistan set a new tone for this president. It was clear you can't trust his moves. Anything that he does, he is putting us all at risk, and his policies just simply are going against our own national security of our nations, and our allies have to be concerned about that, including our biggest ally in the Middle East, that is Israel. And another day of Israel, according to sources, acting out against Hezbollah with walkie-talkies exploding.
Unbelievable.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thanks so much for being here. All right, you ready?
What you got?
Audio from Nancy Pelosi in an interview that she did. All right, here we go.
You had reportedly said you wanted a sort of an open primary if Joe Biden stepped down. Did you change your mind because you saw all the excitement around Kamala Harris?
No, I didn't change my mind. We had an open primary and she won it. Nobody else got in the race because she was politically astute. And but that was the thought.
That's an absolute lie. And
do you even know what open primary means?
It's just amazing. It's like
she didn't get one vote. Oh, we had an open primary. Nobody else jumped in.
I want to say something because I know a lot of people are saying, how can people support Harris? Uh-huh. And I just was thinking about this when I was on vacation a couple of weeks ago. I saw a guy that I had seen a few months ago. And it just made me think about it. But this is the guy that you would meet, and you would think he was conservative. Or you would think he was a Republican and a Trump supporter. And I just said, he's a good guy. Mm-hmm. He's a really, really good guy. Semi-retired, in his late 60s, talk golf with him. And I think most of his opinions are actually conservative. He just hates Trump. It doesn't get past. Right. It doesn't matter. He doesn't want to hear anything. Because I went through, I go, well, what do you think about the radical transgender movement? What do you think about a political party that says a man can be a woman if a man says so? Well, I said, I just don't care about that. I mean, it's just, what do you mean it's not important? If they can do that, what else would they do? Right. Well, but I just hate Trump. Everything I brought up, he had no answer for. None. It's the obsession. If you wonder why, if the election is close, it's close, is because you're not going to convince so many people that the Democrats are bad at all. They can't get past that Trump is Hitler. They really can't.
Yeah, it really is. And I think we've talked about how the toxicity has diminished greatly, but it doesn't mean that people are motivated to vote for him. It may mean that he has less of a negative impact on their daily lives emotionally, but it doesn't mean that he's necessarily going to win. The difference would be, and the question is, and this is the Captain Obvious point here. To what extent does the TDS or hatred for Trump still exist to the point that there's no way? I have in fact a friend who's a Republican, and we talked. When was this? A couple of weeks ago. Oh, it was after the debate, and it was, he made some good points, and I wish he would, but it's the same frustration. This guy is going to vote for Trump, but it's the same thing, kind of the same thing that a lot of conservatives were saying. They had their wish list built of points they wanted him to make and the way that they wanted, and we've done that before. We're guilty of that. But I wonder to what extent, and we'll only know after November 5th when the results come in next November 5th, and to what extent that is the driver versus what's going on with the economy, the border, and everything else. The issues, it really is, I believe that it is an issues-driven, and I mean serious issues right now that people are dealing with daily that are at the top of the mind of all of Americans, and that has the potential to hand this to a victory to Trump. We'll see.
Well, but I realize that you're not going to be able to persuade many people, even if you bring up things that they agree with. For example, because I did with this person, I brought up Charlottesville. I go, that was a lie. He never said that.
Right.
He didn't? No.
Right.
Let me get the quote. Here's what he said. Oh,
right.
Okay.
Right.
He's still an idiot.
Right.
That's the response I got. What was the other big lie we talked about yesterday? I got mind blank now.
Oh, the bloodbath thing.
The bloodbath. I said the whole bloodbath thing?
Yeah.
Never said it.
Right.
All right, excuse me. He said it, but it was a context of automobiles, and I found the audio cut and played it for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he's still an idiot.
Right.
Yeah, but what about them wanting to do this, and this? I really don't care about that stuff. All I care about is he can't be in office again. They don't even want to hear.
Right. They don't want to listen.
They don't want to hear. It's sort of like I was, you sit there and it's amazing. I think somebody like Mike Pence is doing the exact same thing. I saw him talking about it, then I'm going, but you don't talk about what the other side is bluntly telling you that they're going to do and what they've done already. You haven't mentioned the lawfare.
How can it not be on those issues?
Right. You haven't mentioned, you, if anybody, knows about what happened with the Russia collusion hoax. You were right there.
Right.
You know what they did, and you know how for 3 years the Democrats lied about that. You know that came directly from the Hillary campaign.
Yeah. Right.
That they said, and it seems not to bother you at all.
Right.
And it really is. You sit back when you attempt to talk to these people, and it doesn't matter if they agree with everything that you say. And that's what I found out with this guy. Every single thing I brought up, every single issue I brought up, he agreed with. He agreed with everything of my policy. But doesn't matter if the Democrats are against it. He hates Trump.
Yeah, right.
And that was it. And I think that's what hatred does. You saw the poll that came out yesterday, the Rasmussen poll. A majority of Democrats say they are either unsure if America would be better off if Trump had been murdered over the weekend, or flat out say America would be better off. The desensitizing of some Americans following the second assassination attempt of former President Trump is alarming, writes Napolitan News, 17% of voters believe America would have been better off if former President Trump had been killed in last week's attempted assassination. That's not the worst of it. See, the most troubling can be found in the crosstabs. Let me see. A majority of Democrats do not find it difficult at all to wish ill of another human being. Only 47% of questions said no to that question, while 28% said Americans would be better off if Trump had been murdered, and 25% were unsure. In other words, 53% of Democrats are either okay with Trump being murdered or on the fence about it. 49% of Democrats think it's at least somewhat likely that Trump himself or the Trump campaign was involved in the assassination attempt.
Wow. I knew that was coming. I actually said that to someone close to me. What day? It was Tuesday morning, actually. I said, you know what? Wait until because they're the whole blame Trump thing. Wait for it. The next step of it is, oh, yeah, no, it was his plot altogether.
With 21% saying it was very likely. 52% of Republicans think it's at least somewhat likely that the Democratic Party or the Harris campaign was involved, with 28% saying it's very likely. But you know where that comes from. It comes from the fact that the Secret Service is so inept, and it happened twice, that people go, how the hell could this happen?
If you're talking administratively in that way,
yeah,
in terms of a plot, that's one thing. But if you're talking about the failures of the administration, then that does apply.
Well, for example, I mean, you saw Senator Blumenthal.
Yeah, right.
He hates Trump.
Right.
Here he is talking about the congressional oversight into the attempted assassination of Trump. Here we go.
I am reaching the point of total outrage because the response from the Department of Homeland Security has been totally lacking. In fact, I think it's tantamount to stonewalling in many respects. If necessary, I'll certainly support a subpoena.
He's talking about Department of Homeland Security.
Yeah.
That they're completely are stonewalling congressional oversight at all into this, that they don't want to investigate, what's going on here. And
right.
Blumenthal and other Democrats are absolutely horrified. Why are they that's where it comes for Republicans.
Right.
That's where it comes from. Well, my God, who wouldn't be concerned about this?
Right. Yeah,
there doesn't seem to be really any type of concern coming from the White House. So there you go.
Wow. Very interesting survey.
But he said, if you truly believe Trump is the next Hitler and that he will kill or imprison his political enemies, if you truly believe he will become a dictator on day one, which Harris and Biden have been saying over and over and over again, if you truly believe he will become a dictator on day one, that he's a racist who praises Nazis, and you hear it repeated over and over again, not by only Democrats, but by the media, well, then you shouldn't be surprised at those conclusions. If you, and we know this started with Bush. Bush is Hitler. Bush is Hitler.
Right.
Romney is Hitler.
Right.
Romney is Hitler. Romney is Hitler.
Right.
We've talked about Bill Maher, who said, well, yeah, we said that we said that Bush was Hitler, and we said that Romney was Hitler, but Trump really is Hitler. No, he's not. Stop it.
Yeah, I said it earlier, part of the conditioning of America. You repeat things over and over again. Anybody with any influence that repeats these ideas over and over again, what do you think the effect is going to be, and what is your intended effect? If you're saying something like, no, but really this guy really is Hitler, and you've got any influence at all, which Bill Maher does, then what do you think's going to happen? What do you believe that leads to? You're creating a fear in the minds of individuals that he would potentially be responsible for the death of Millions. That's a big deal. You look at the suspect clearly, by his social media posts on Ukraine and everything else, there was a lot of virtue signaling going on a number of issues there, but Ukraine is one that kind of rose to the top in the coverage of the suspect after the attempted assassination the other day. And it looks like, to me, my perception of that is this is a guy who wants to come across as a hero.
Yeah, that's
so you have to carry that through to his actions that led up to this past weekend. That's what he has to believe in his mind to get that far.
Mm-hmm.
And the shooter also from the first assassination attempt. I'm going to be a hero. And for those in this survey, and it's really hard to say, it's just morbid to think about, but it's a survey.
Well,
and for those who believed that it would be better if he didn't survive these attempts, then those shooters, whoever did the deed, would be the hero.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you do believe that Trump should be murdered, then you must believe he is Hitler-like and is going to do the things that the media and the Democrats lie about.
Right.
You've bought. The marketing has been successful. And when you buy into something that what Trump did the assassination himself and said, could you please miss me by just a millimeter? Make sure you shoot that gun and miss me.
Make sure you graze my ear.
Yeah, graze my ear when you do that.
Yeah.
That Trump or the Trump campaign is responsible for the assassination attempt. What is that? What was that amount? Again here, I moved it to the back of my stuff. Let me just see. What was the? I want to get the one. No,
any more than one person is too many, but it is
49% of Democrats think it's at least somewhat likely that Trump himself or the Trump campaign was involved in the assassination attempt.
Now, are they talking about the second one or the first one?
I don't know. They just say that. That's all it says.
But either one, I mean, the idea that, that's, he put the guy up to it. Wow. This is where we are. Public sentiment, the consensus is what builds political leverage and keeps us in a situation that we're in right now. It makes you wonder if we'll ever solve the huge, I believe, a crisis at the Secret Service. Well, with numbers like this.
Well, the other thing is, too, remember, who was it that tried to pull? One of the Democrats put a bill in to pull Secret Service protection from Trump.
Right. Yeah.
So that's why Republicans go, well, my God, they're doing stuff like that.
Right.
And then a complete inept Secret Service, in these shootings, especially the first one, completely inept.
Right.
And then it's allowed to happen again. And we know Democrats wanted to pull Secret Service protection from him. Why would they want to do it?
Right.
Well, they want him dead. Well, if they want him dead, then could they possibly be responsible for it?
Right.
That's how conspiracies get born.
Exactly.
Conspiracy theories.
Right.
866-90-RED-EYE.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Thanks for being here this morning. Wow, interesting day.
Yeah, very interesting day.
Every day isn't every day an adventure? It's like, my God. And yesterday, I think I woke up to this. All right, I think this what I woke up to yesterday. We played it earlier, but this is what I woke up to. This is what got my day started. This whole clip coming out from Kamala.
Responsible behaviors among everybody in the community, and just because you legally possess a gun in the sanctity of your locked home doesn't mean that we're not going to walk into that home and check to see if you're being responsible and safe in the way you conduct your affairs.
Wow. Let me repeat the quote again. Just because you legally possess a gun in the sanctity of your locked home doesn't mean we're not going to walk into that home and check to see if you're being responsible, end of quote.
Now, they won't have a key, which means they're going to bust the door open. She said locked home, to be clear.
Right.
That would require them to bust the door open and come in. Sounds like at will.
Well, she didn't say if you're not being responsible,
no,
or you break a gun law.
It sounded like at will.
It's like, at will, whenever we are, we're you could be responsible, but if we don't know, we haven't checked on you, well, then we're going to bust into your home and check to make sure you're being responsible with your firearms. Understand how incredibly radical she is.
Right. Yeah, no, Tom Cruise and the precogs are going to decide you shouldn't have a gun because bad things are going to happen. This is who they are. I own a gun. Tim Walz owns a gun. We don't want to take your gun. We will come into your locked home.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Download our Red Eye Radio app today, and you can listen when and where you choose. I was thinking that 49% of that poll, 49% of Democrats would either believes that if Trump was murdered this past weekend, it would be better for the country, and others are, not sure.
Right.
Is really pretty amazing because even if you thought that way, would you answer to a pollster that way? And think about this. I want to play this from C-SPAN. This happened yesterday. This is a Democrat calling C-SPAN yesterday. And apparently they don't use a delay.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Here's this call. Here we go.
Slidell, Louisiana. Willie, Democrat, good morning.
Good morning. I just want to say I'm a very patriotic American. I did 20 years in the military, 2 tours in Vietnam, wounded in 1966, went back in 68. And I look at myself and think about we were supposed, as a military man, we're supposed to close, kill, capture, destroy the enemy by all means available. And to see we let this man Trump destroy America, and I look at it and say, well, these two people had to step up and take that shot. I'm 83, nothing to lose.
I'm sorry, Willie, you're not advocating violence, are you?
Not violence. I'm talking about defending my country.
All right.
Wow. This is how they think.
Yeah.
Understand. Look, we've said this before. And I've had some conversations with Republicans and said, look, on the show, we've been talking about the radicalism of the Democratic Party and where it was going and where this would all lead for the longest time.
Yeah.
We had said a long time ago, and we were dismissed, but we were right. It wasn't tough to figure this out. We said where identity politics was going. And if you're the party that believes in identity politics where you judge people by the physical characteristics, the immutable characteristics of them, and not by their character and their individual mind, well, then that's where racism begins. Racism is all about judging people by groups and not as individuals. And it's so obvious. And we've seen this, really, the modern identity politics movement for the last 20 years. If you're a racist, you're not a critical thinking person. You're an emotional person who is filled with hate, envy, and jealousy. You're consumed with it. You can see the anger in so many liberals, this fury that they have.
Yeah.
And then you see that the identity politics, as we said, we weren't surprised by the Jewish hatred that comes from so many Democrats. We weren't surprised with it at all. We're not surprised by the anti-Semitism. They've been practicing this for almost 40 years, when what I view as a modern identity politics movement beginning in the late 80s. They simply added Jews.
Mm-hmm.
That's all. And so when you have a party filled with this hatred and the rage of jealousy and envy and class warfare that consumes them, that they are the victim of everything that's going out there. They're not responsible. They're living perfect lives. They haven't done anything wrong. Everything is blamed on someone else. Their lot in life is blamed on somewhere else. And it goes from identity politics, from the racism of it, the class warfare of it, the anti-Semitism of it. It's obvious that this is how they think. What do you expect when people are consumed with jealousy, rage, class warfare, hate? This is what you're going to get. It's not my fault. The corporations are why everything is bad. You know, my college should be paid for because there are billionaires. That's insane thinking. Absolutely insane.
Corporations are driving the price of college through the roof. I can just throw it in.
Yeah, just throw it in.
Just say it.
Just make it up. Make it up as you go along. But that's where you get. And I remember saying this a long time ago that when this has to be in the early to mid 90s, when it was saying, well, racism's the worst problem we have. I go, no, it's not. It's jealousy and envy.
Mm-hmm.
But now, jealousy, envy, the racism that causes identity politics and anti-Semitism, it's owned by the Democrats. Look, the misogyny. Think about this. Look at the rage. Look at the rage that you get. Let's use Keith Olbermann as an example. Going after Riley Gaines the other day. That was just completely ludicrous. I mean, you're like, this guy is an evil misogynist. I mean, seriously, you couldn't make any sense of it whatsoever. I'm just going to her Twitter site to see if I can find it here, because from the other day, because it was just nuts. What Olbermann said about her. And let me just see if I can find it here. It's okay. The problem now with Riley Gaines is
she posts a lot. Yeah,
that's my problem with her. I want to find what I was looking for, and she's posting 50 things a day. That's not right. Make it Riley, your job is to make it easy for me. But she, you had Olbermann go after her, and he was insane, Eric. I mean, that was an insane. But that's what happens when someone is full of hatred and jealousy and rage.
Right.
It's the emotion of taking letting your brain soak in all that is evil and wrong, and then blaming it on everybody else. And to the point where you're just absolutely filled with this incredible rage that makes no sense. When it comes out of your mouth, it makes no sense.
And it's another example, Oberman going off on Riley Gaines is another example of, well, if you stand up and say something about it, you believe as an athlete it's unfair that your sport is being threatened because men are allowed to compete in women's sports, then we'll come after you. We'll be, and they have come after Riley Gaines. Right.
Viciously.
Our audience knows, but if you've been living under a rock over the last couple of years, there's plenty of information you can find and evidence of what I'm saying. And it's just as she was speaking at a university here in North Texas, and someone shouting, as people are walking in, I know where you live.
And think about this. The totally sane opinion, well, women should compete against women in sports, and women should have their private areas for men. How does that mindset cause the hatred and rage that you see from the left and the Democrats?
Right.
Where the hell does that come from?
Right.
I mean, it's not normal thinking. I found it, Olbermann, the other day. Here's what he wrote to Fox News and Riley Gaines about Riley Gaines. Mediocre swimmer, sufferer of delusions of grandeur, and future curse word parent. Riley Gaines decides she's in charge of the personal decisions of all children everywhere.
It's the left that's taking charge of the children. Oberman.
It's absolutely. I mean, he's nuts.
Yeah, he is.
These people are absolutely. I don't know, because there's no critical thinking. Think about what the issue is. The issue is simply biological women should play sports against biological women.
Right.
And women should have their private spaces where men can't invade.
Right. Which has been a societal norm for a very long time.
Yes, forever.
Yeah.
And then her response, when Tim Wall says men use tampons, he's explicitly referring to Keith Olbermann. Oh
that was a great response.
I know, it was great.
But it's, again, more evidence of we'll come after you. How dare you stand up for your sport? That's what we know Riley Gaines for doing. Riley Gaines is standing up for other women in women's sports.
Yeah.
We can't have that. We'll come after you. That's the misogynist, bigoted, racist left for you.
It is.
That's who they are.
And that's why you can't get through to them. You can't get through to people that are full of hate and rage, and that's what they're full of.
That Rasmussen response or poll. I mean, if you need a snapshot of where we are today, it is so disturbing.
And I still think that Republicans are caught off guard. They're like, well, they really can't be like this. And we've been saying for the longest time they are. We've been saying
this is how they think.
This is how they.
This isn't what they're doing to win power. This is who they are. This is how they think. And they still win elections.
Yeah.
And they win elections because of, you see it.
They win elections.
The response the response from people in this poll from Rasmussen.
They win elections because they hate together.
Yeah.
That's what it is. They hate together.
Right.
Because you tell me what normal person would sit there and say, okay, so you believe biological women should play against biological women and women should have their own private spaces.
Right.
And then you go into a complete insane fit, as Olbermann has done, and he did there again.
Mm-hmm.
But you see it consistently doing it. And when women wanted it, they were bullied, they were threatened, they were intimidated. Remember what happened to her? Was it in San Diego State, was it?
Yeah.
Where, she was, basically
locked in,
had to go hide in a room.
Yeah.
These people are nuts, folks.
Right.
That's why you can't get through to them. And it's more people than we think it is.
Yeah.
Because the people that don't agree with it but don't say anything are just as bad as the people who are publicly insane and talking about it.
Right.
And so we saw this coming a long time ago, and we said it with identity politics.
And too many Republicans, as you mentioned, by the way, that's a solid point that needs to be repeated, because over the years, again, when I say things like the conditioning of America, when you have Republicans going, well, they don't, they're blah, 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 blah. That's how you have an entire party like the Republican Party lay down over and over and over again. And we've been asking the question, who's going to stand up and fight?
When I was back on vacation, I was talking about that one buddy of mine, a guy who we used to have great discussions all the time. He goes, well, I'm an independent. The Democrats do right things. I go, tell me a right thing the Democrats do. Here's what they're doing.
Right.
Do you agree with this? No.
Right.
Do you agree with this? No. 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 Every single thing he was saying, he was doing what Republicans do. Well, Democrats have some good ideas and Republicans have some good ideas. And I found out every thought process, everything that I brought up, the major issues of the Democrats, he thought were wrong, yet he was still saying, well, there's good things that they do. What?
What? Where?
What?
Yeah, right.
Can't name it.
Right.
866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. You see the story that Iran tried to influence the election by sending stolen material from the Trump campaign to the Biden's camp.
Right.
That's what the FBI says. Wonder why.
Yeah, gee, I wonder why. Who would they want the president to be? Who do they want in office?
Who would they want to? Where do they get their money from? Who has allowed them hundreds of over a few periods of year, hundreds of billions of dollars?
Right. It's the Biden administration.
Biden-Harris administration.
Yep.
Their terrorism money, the majority significant flow of their terrorism money gets cut off if Trump's elected.
The bad guys of the world want Biden or Harris and people like them to be in charge of the free world. They know. They know their weaknesses. Keep them in office.
Yes.
They want Harris to be president because they know her policies would mimic Biden's.
So we suggest the Harris campaign stop playing the flock of seagulls.
Exactly.
At campaign stops.
Yeah.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning.
Hello.
Sitting here. Thursday, right?
Sure, go with it.
It just one day just runs into the other.
Yeah.
I know what the time is.
I had to look up when you asked that. I actually had to look up at the clock going, oh, yeah, it says THU. I think that stands for Thursday.
I know what the time is. I know what the year is. I know what the month is. Just having a little problem with
Does anyone really know what time it is, though? Does anyone really care? It could be 25 or 624. I don't know.
I like that. I like that. References to classic rock. Oh, so was my music joke too obscure?
We'll find out if people respond to it.
Okay.
From the last hour.
Okay. If you get it, it's funny. If you got it,
may take a minute.
It might have been.
Yeah.
Well, okay, I'll explain it just very quickly. We were talking about Iran sending information to Democrats about the Republicans. And we were just, talking about the fact that, because Iran wants Harris to win because that's their money flow. And then I said something like, either that's why they'll continue playing Flock of Seagulls.
Maybe they should stop playing.
Or maybe they should stop playing
at
Flock
the
of Seagulls.
campaign
Right, exactly.
rally or
right,
something. Yeah.
And I was talking about their song, Iran.
Iran. Yeah.
Not Iran. Iran.
Mm-hmm.
And Iran. And a guy I know, Gordon Depp, plays guitar for them.
They're still touring?
Oh, yeah. They tour constantly.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. They tour all the time.
All right.
The 80s thing is big.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, in my humble opinion, Gordon Depp, who plays guitar for him, is in a band that's about 1 billion times better than Flock of Seagulls would ever want to be.
Oh.
And that's the band The Spoons out of Canada.
Mm.
Greatest album of the 80s. And you know why? Arias and Symphonies is the album. Greatest album of the 80s. And I figured out why one day when I read his book, because he wrote a book. He's very popular in Canada.
Mm.
And he was a Steve Hackett fanatic, the guitarist from Genesis, that I just love. And when I read that, I went, that's what makes the album different. It's a prog rock new wave album.
There you go.
That's like, wow. But, yeah. Meanwhile, looking at the Babylon Bee here. You ready?
All right.
Breaking. Israel kills thousands more terrorists with exploding 200 free hours of AOL CDs.
For those under 60.
For those who do remember 80s rock.
Exactly. And
80s new
pagers
wave.
and AOL CDs.
Another headline from the Babylon Bee. This is all parody, and we're not doing voices, so Gavin Newsom, from what I know, can't ban this in California.
Oh, okay.
I think you're safe to all of our California stations.
Mm-hmm.
Hezbollah starting to think they should not have gotten their pagers from Levi Goldbronstein's Pager Emporium.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a sad story. Trump's golf buddies all say they're busy for the next decade or so.
That's something I didn't consider. Because Trump plays golf with a lot of people.
Media asks Trump if he's tried reducing assassination attempts by being less Republican.
Yeah. That's funny because of the spirit of it is true. Hey, did you?
No, you're right. It is.
They're blaming him, basically.
And my favorite, I was born into a middle-class family, explains wife, when the husband asks why the car is on fire.
Oh, I'm going to use that one. Let's see if it works.
I don't know what it's like at the Babylon Bee. I've seen Seth Dillon, and he always presents himself, in a really good way. It's Seth Dillon, right? That's the guy that runs it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But I think of myself, and this goes back again to Mad Magazine for me. The long-haired people doing the Mad Mag. Totally, they take a shot at anyone.
Yeah, right.
And I always pictured myself. I always thought that would be great because it's sort of like, the beginning of the National Lampoon. I'm thinking, wow, what a great job. You're all sitting there and I'm sure this is not the case of the Babylon Bee, but you're sitting there with a bottle and cocktails and everybody's around. There's, cigarette smoke in the air. Somebody's passing around a joint over there.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, all right, man, we got to come up with great headlines here and great stories.
Right. Yeah.
And what a job that would be.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, probably not a healthy job to work your entire
Well, can
life.
you think about a bunch of hippies sitting around, I don't know if you could call it a newsroom, but an office back in the day with Mad Magazine. A bunch of hippies sitting around making stuff up, printing it and putting it out there, or as they call it today, the New York Times.
Is that why, I've always wondered this, is that why the TMZ TV show puts off that imagery of people all sitting around just talking about stuff?
That there's an allure to it? You mean, are they trying
that there's
to
an allure of
capitalize
it, that's
on the,
that is something that comes from the imagery of National Lampoon and Mad Magazine and all that, that you would imagine that's how they come up with their ideas, when actually it's probably quite scripted, I'm assuming, so they can, and edited to get that half-hour show out.
Yeah, I mean, with TMZ, I think you're collecting all the raw that comes in, and then you do I'm sure they call that the wraparound of their comments on, okay, here's what we got, or their rundown, basically, as they go through, all right, here's what we got, so-and-so was seen,
But they're not doing comedy, though. Well, the stories are the stories of comedy.
It sometimes can be funny. Yeah. But it's interesting how they kind of brought a lot of that Hollywood allure down to earth, I think, with TMZ.
Yeah.
Because I don't consider them to be the typical paparazzi of, we've got to get so. In fact, typically, up till that point, the paparazzi was responsible in part for building the images of these celebrities. Oh, look, so-and-so was at this restaurant with so-and-so. And so TMZ is like, no, we saw so-and-so at the airport. We saw so-and-so at the laundromat or whatever. Kind of bringing it down to earth a little bit, I think, for a lot of them. Or in the case of George Stephanopoulos, almost bringing his career at ABC to an end, asking, should Biden drop out? That was somebody from TMZ. Didn't TMZ use that?
Did they?
Yeah, I think they did.
Yeah, I just don't. The only time I go to TMZ is when I see a celebrity has died. I'm like, well, did they? Let me see if there's TMZ has the story yet.
Well, there's
if it's
the
someone
other
in
part of it.
Hollywood.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they've been
because they have TMZ stands for those that don't know, 30-mile zone. Basically, Hollywood is what they call the 30-mile zone, a very small, geographically very small area, and a lot happens within that area. But that's basically where they got the name. And so they cover, that includes Hollywood deaths.
And now it comes to the dating advice portion of Red Eye Radio. From the New York Post the other day, we never got to it, and we need to. Dating guru reveals why liberal women hate dating liberal men.
What do you have to do to earn the title dating guru?
I don't know.
I don't know what that. Yeah.
I have no idea.
Yeah. But
dating expert, how is that different than a dating guru? A self-confessed serial dater, and maybe that's why. A self-confessed serial dater and best-selling author feels liberal women could prefer to find love with a conservative man in order to feel safe and respected. Steve Santagati, who penned the book, the manual, A True Bad Boy Explains How Men Think, Date, and Mate, and what women can do to come out on top, said many liberal women cannot find what they're looking for among men who they agree with politically. It's not that women like, quote, conservative men. They just don't like liberal men, and they don't like men that are not real men, Santagati told Fox News Digital. Any liberal woman who's with a true liberal man, chances are she hates him, she resents him. Santagati continued. Women want to be with the man that they can trust, that they can feel safe with, and the bottom line is conservative men have these qualities over liberal men. By a landslide.
Our thoughts go out to Mary Madeline, by the way.
Exactly. Santagati feels many women believe in traditional gender roles, even if they are afraid to admit it. He said that deep down, most women want a masculine male, regardless of whatever is politically correct to acknowledge these days. No matter what they tell you, equality, blah, 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 if they keep pushing that on you, ask any woman to give you an honest answer. You're driving down the road. It's pouring rain. You get a flat tire, and your liberal husband says to you, honey, I don't want to usurp your femininity. Why don't you go out and change the tire, and I'll wait here inside where it's warm and dry and listen to NPR.
The lockout is what sold it right there. And listen to NPR.
It ain't going to happen. She's going to hate you, the author said.
Wow. I'm going to try that with my wife, by the way, the next time.
Oh, God.
I don't remember the last time I had a flat, but I'll try that with my wife.
This is great, though. Senegatti was amused last month when CNN's Dana Bash essentially suggested during coverage of the Democratic National Convention that the Harris-Walz ticket appeals to males who might not be as masculine as their Republican counterparts. Remember? Because we did that.
Yeah, right.
They are doing so in trying to put forward male figures, Tim Walz being one of them. Doug Emhoff last night, who can speak to men out there who might not be the sort of testosterone late. Okay, this is the quote from her.
All right.
They are doing so in trying to put forward male figures, Tim Walz being one of them, Doug Emhoff last night, who can speak to men out there who might not be the sort of testosterone-laden, gun-toting kind of guy who wants to listen to Hulk Hogan and the kind of players that came out at the RNC Bash said. The author agrees, Walz and Emhoff aren't exactly oozing masculinity. But he felt Democrats were targeting traditional males by playing up the Minnesota governor's experience as an assistant high school football coach and pushing camouflage campaign hats. You and I talked about this because that's what they pushed to begin with.
Right.
And then by the time you got to the DNC, they were saying, because remember, the first thing was Republicans are paranoid of a masculine liberal man.
Right.
And then a couple of weeks later at the DNC, when obviously the stereotype that they were going by didn't fit that to Dana Bash, started talking about how they are different types of males that, aren't filled with testosterone and showing the world that men can be in a different light.
Right.
And you and I just enjoyed the entire thing there and just went, well, and this is where we said, this is where the identity politics gets. Who's the one that's judging masculinity? Who is the one that's obsessed and talking about it? It's the liberals.
It's the liberals. And, they start the whole, remember the toxic masculinity thing? Well, says who? Toxic. If a person is toxic, that's one thing. If masculinity is natural, well, it's natural. What are you going to do to change it? By the way, let me just add this. I was born this way.
Senegatti laughed as he sarcastically suggested that the men who shop at Bass Pro Shop might suddenly support Walz because he likes camo too. He also doesn't think the typical non-masculine male can convert themselves into someone desirable to women if they're too far into left-wing ideology. It's not like you can pick up fly fishing or shoot a gun and all of a sudden you're a man.
Exactly.
It really comes down.
That, yeah.
We'd said that. It really comes down to, because they left out golf. Why do I golf? It's the feminine side of me. It really comes down to logic and common sense. Can I take care of you? Am I a stable guy? Those are the overriding factors that make a conservative very different than a wishy-washy man bun liberal.
Oh, the man bun. She threw in man bun. By the way, when I said, made the comment, I was born this way, I wasn't actually speaking first person because I don't think for a minute that I'm masculine. So just to be clear, it comes down really to call it whatever you want. But I think a lot of women want somebody who is determined to be in that role as a husband, father, or even a date.
And the best point this author makes coming up next, 866-90 Red Eye.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at JJ Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on speed and space management. When driving, you need to manage the space around your vehicle so that there's enough space to allow you to adjust when traffic conditions change. The space ahead of your vehicle is the most important and one of the easiest to monitor and adjust as needed. One rule of thumb is to allow at least 1 second for each 10 feet of vehicle length at speeds below 40 miles per hour. At greater speeds, add an additional second. It's impossible to keep other drivers from tailgating you, but there are some things you can do to make it safer, such as increasing your following distance, avoiding quick lane changes, and slowing down. There are also several things you should do to ensure that there is plenty of space between the side of your vehicle and other vehicles. Don't hug the center line, avoid hugging the right side of the road, and avoid traveling alongside other vehicles in strong winds, especially crosswinds. This tip was brought to you by JJ Keller and Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90 Red Eye on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. So here's what that author said about liberal women dating. If you look at the DNC and you look at the people that are involved, especially at the level that will attend such an event, they're very angry people, the author said of the dating book. The men are not being true to themselves. It's all of veneer of, oh, yes, I apologize for my whiteness. I apologize for my male toxicity. I apologize for these things. Women don't want that.
Whoa. I think there's a lot to that. Because you want somebody who's going to, and it's just a different mindset because it's a different role in the relationship. You want somebody who's going to be determined. You want somebody who's going to solve problems. You don't want somebody who's going to sit around and have a conversation about it and talk about feelings.
This is not your safe place. Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Little fun time there. Dating tips from that author of the dating book. So, on liberals versus conservatives.
Well, because I was telling you during the break that if you look at it, this whole idea of masculinity or whatever, however you want to phrase it, but the role of men in society, from my point of view, it is a subservient position to be in because you're looking to, if you're doing it right, you want to provide for your spouse, you want to provide for your family, and you're building that fortress around them and protecting them because you value life, and women create life.
Right.
And I've talked about this numerous times in different social gatherings with friends and everything else. But for me, it all starts and ends with valuing life in a society. And you want to protect that, and you want to protect the ability of that. And that's what it's been about, because if you understand it, then you are truly in awe of what a woman's body can do in creating another life. And that, to me, must always be honored and protected. That's just, that will never change. I'm not going to say, well, there's different considerations, modern age, blah, blah, blah. No, to me, there's no compromise on that because of how much value I put into life. It's 100% in that direction at all times. It's not that I or others don't fail, but you get right back up and you show up every day. That's what you have to do.
I've always thought, because I remember the debate going back, had to be at least 20 years ago. Remember the Baptists and that, men need to be the leaders of the family, and the feminist movement this is before the feminist movement crumbled to the misogyny of the radical transgender movement. Think about that. Because, and I had said at the time, I said, look, I'm not Baptist. I said, but I understand the concept completely. And it's, women, because they're the ones that have the babies, find themselves in very vulnerable positions. And to me, if you're going to use that term leader, I agree with you. It is what the message you're communicating is not that I tell you what to do, but that I am willing to sacrifice and do whatever so in your vulnerable state, which you are vulnerable as a human being when you're pregnant.
Yes.
That, I am your protector.
Right.
I am your security blanket. And so when you said the subservient thing, it reminded me of that, which it really is. It's the leader to take that. You're taking that role that you're going to because of the vulnerable situation of a woman because of pregnancy. And that's been the traditional roles for as long as men have been around.
And I have 3 adult daughters. I have 6 granddaughters. And I've also, it's not just vulnerable in that state when they're pregnant, but vulnerable in that there are so many predators that target women. And quite frankly, I mean, it because our daughters are the 2 oldest, are 2 of our children that were daughters, and they're the oldest, and then my youngest is a daughter. But in raising my daughters and raising my son, there was a different approach, and yeah, you act differently as a parent. You understand that there are predators at every turn, and then you may think, well, I'm being paranoid, until you look at the stats and understand that's your role, that's your job. You don't have to go overboard, but you have to be vigilant, and that is something I think that, again, people look beyond. Our instinct doesn't ever waver. But when you try and manipulate instinct, there will be a response to that. There will be a reaction to that where it will change how people act and everything else. When you say, well, men shouldn't be. If an individual is toxic, that's one thing. But in acting as if you believe, because I believe that I'm supposed to serve my family and my wife this way. This is how I'm supposed to act. And again, I don't hit it 100% every single day in terms of getting it right. But you show up every day and you get back up on the horse if you do fail. Those are the things that I think anybody is looking for in another individual. But if you were talking about pairing men and women, then it's very clear what the roles have been. And again, for me, it all starts and ends with life, creating life, and protecting it.
And when you talk in general, if you believe your job is to be a leader, it means what you're saying is it's my responsibility to serve.
Exactly.
Other human beings.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it actually
is. Right.
It isn't a thing where, I'm better.
or telling, it would be laughable. And if you knew my wife, this would be laughable. And we have these jokes every once in a while. Throw it in telling her what to do. That's not the point. There isn't.
Right.
It's in fact, there is a joke. If I say I demand it, then there's lots of laughter.
No. But the interesting thing is, the feminist still would attack that, and look at what they've crumbled underneath.
Yeah, right.
Look at what they've crumbled underneath. Men demanding that women accept men as women because the men say so.
Right.
That's the thing that's completely and totally mind-boggling if you're my age or your age.
Right.
And in my age, seeing the women's movement, especially in the late 60s into the 70s and everything that went to that, to see that movement crumble as it did.
Well, the Civil Rights Act. I mean, if you think about the Civil Rights Act, and we talked about it before, but as a society, we decided that there were going to be protections for individuals, for groups, based on, and protected groups. We decided there were going to be protected groups based on things that people could not change about themselves. And Title IX was a part of that. That all right, women should have the right and protection when it comes to sports, and they should have this as a society. We decided that, but then lately, in recent years, Democrats have decided that there should be no civil rights. The Civil Rights Act would be gone. It will be gone if they have their way, because if you can claim to be a member of any protected group simply by saying so, then there are no protected groups.
But to be my age and watch the modern women's movement in the 60s,
right,
and where it went from there,
right,
and then even 20 years ago when that whole thing that, the whole Baptist thing, Baptists asserts that men are leaders. Well, what does that mean? No, you're not. And the feminists went crazy over it. And it's like, well, no, we're talking about the fact that because women are vulnerable in certain, especially in physical areas, pregnancy and, physical size, whatever. And as you mentioned, predators, the man, by saying that, is not saying, I tell you what to do.
Right.
They're saying that leaders serve.
Right.
Leaders earn respect.
Yeah.
And because you're vulnerable, I'm the one that has to go out in the world and do whatever I have to do to support this family, to make sure this family survives. That was viewed as incredibly sexist.
Yeah.
They disagreed with that completely.
Right.
And they completely folded.
Yeah. On Title IX.
When men said, no, I can be a woman because I say so.
Mm-hmm.
And the woman said, well, no, you can't.
Right.
And then it's time to become a complete misogynist and threaten and bully
Keith Olbermann.
Yeah, the women that say, wait a minute, we're women, we're not men. You are what we say you are. And if you don't like it, we'll threaten you with violence, we'll threaten your career, we'll threaten your livelihood, we'll threaten you, we'll bully you. And the feminist movement that was upset with, the Baptists, for example, saying, well, men, you need to be leaders of your family.
Mm-hmm.
Or, for example, totally upset at the Kansas City kicker, by the way. Not that I want to see, if Dale Carter, if you're listening, not that I want to see Kansas City win, but for them to win.
Yeah.
And I can't think of the kicker's name, the kicker that talked about, that marriage for women is another choice that you should think of because it's extremely rewarding. The feminists went nuts over that.
Right.
They went absolutely nuts. Well, he kicked the field goal, and I saw the video, Taylor Swift jumping up and down and hugging him. Taylor, you hate him.
Yeah, remember, he's not on your side.
Why are you jumping up and down? So
Or
Dale,
you're not on his side, I should say.
So Dale Carter, if you're listening, Dale is the public address announcer at Arrowhead.
Right.
So great friends of the show.
Yeah.
Does a great podcast. Great guy. I mean, just great. great, great, great salt-of-the-earth individual, even though he just had completely roots for the wrong team.
Well, we find flaws in
wait
everybody.
a minute. No, I really can't back that statement up. Let's just move along.
Yeah.
How many Super Bowls have they won in a row now, too?
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. Who's your team?
No, but I mean, to see Taylor says, I know Taylor's supposed to hate him, but to see how he was demonized and the feminist movement just crumbled over men going, we define what a woman is.
Right. Yeah.
And it's like, none of it makes any damn sense. It doesn't, there is no consistent, connect the dots.
Right.
Critical thinking mindset to that.
Right.
It's
well, if you think about it, we talked about the low birth rate. I would love to see a survey as to
Harrison Butker is the kicker. Yes,
I'd love to see a survey as to on this low birth rate thing. How many women want to have families, and how much of that is based on how men have been feminized? Do you feel secure in having a family? I would love to see the breakdown. I'd love to see the breakdown, because having a family is a big deal. It's everything. And I understand some people say, "Oh, I don't want to take on the responsibility," or for for other reasons. But I wonder how much of it is about, I don't know that I could find a husband that would be there. It's always needle in a haystack, but more and more.
I wonder what the author, we're to find out what the author in that book, if he wrote about conservative men dating liberal women.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What's the psychology behind that?
Yeah.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah, for the three guys that are doing that, if you are listening, let us know.
I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think of a well-known conservative man that dates a liberal woman.
I know there's got to be one.
Did you see the picture?
But this is why James Carville feels safe, because of Mary Madeline.
See the picture of Kelsey with what's her name, the singer,
Taylor Swift.
Yeah, Taylor Swift,
mm-hmm.
The one from 2 years ago, and then wherever they were at a concert. It's like, well, he's been dating her for a couple of years. He's been fully feminized. The picture of him in that stupid hat.
Oh yeah, yeah,
it's like,
yeah. Well, it's working.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. So there you go. We've had some fun talking liberal women dating liberal men.
Yeah,
and that book author.
Very interesting.
It's really interesting. I'd like to see. Now, can you discuss that though? Could sociologists actually sit down and discuss that? Or would there be too much anger and rage? Or is feminism dead now because of the radical transgender movement? That's a question.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it would be well received on college campuses, but
nothing is.
Yeah, exactly. You can't do anything now. There's protesters everywhere.
If you're not an anti-Semite, don't come to our college.
Exactly.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.